Who's
This is
the
Dave LaBrosse.
servers here?
What's your name?
Sarah Nolan.
What did you
Nice
say?
to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Sarah. Danny Shoot.
And I'm just completely
There you go.
updated.
So Dan.
was on the train when he came down to prison. But then,
It's unmuted now.
when I was 9 years old,
Is that
until I
being
was
picked up?
15 years old, I came down every summer and helped my grandfather on the farm. He had 3 sons. They both, all 3 worked at Savannah. Later on, they all went into the service.
Yeah.
So I worked with them all summer, and I was here during the 42 flood.
Were you really?
Yeah. When my uncle came down to get me, we were the last ones to cross the John F. Bridge at Bridgeville. The bridge went out right after we went over.
Is that right? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you start in Sylvania then?
I actually worked at Savannah before I went in the Navy, and then when I came home, I went to work with paper mill in Johnsburg. I worked there about a year. Then I went to Savannah up in Jamestown, then I transferred from Jamestown down to Emporium.
We can see your YouTube.
Altogether, I had over 47 years in Savannah. I worked with Kenny, he was in an electrical shop. We both were apprentices. We took electrical apprenticeship for 3 years. We both were.
So in its heyday, how many people did Sylvania employ?
Well, when they first started making the colored picture tubes, they employed 3,600 people. And because they were doing glass, it was something that had to be done 24 hours a day. They never shut down. So we had people come up from Kane and Nova and Cordell and 80 and all that stuff. And they were, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
That was a commute back then.
Yeah. From Renova and Kane and all that.
What happened then?
Cars they had.
Then the picture tube thing got changed, went to Ottawa and Seneca Falls.
Right.
So Kenny and I both were traveling a lot of, we traveled both places.
And what was it, there was a plant in Altoona too, because wasn't there?
Yeah, there was probably a dozen plants in the United States.
But it all started
They
here,
already had one in Mill Hall, they had one in Altoona. And then, of course, when in St. Mary's made the light bulbs.
Yeah. But it all started here, right?
It all started here, yeah, there was George Erskine and Mortman. I can't remember the other guy that actually started.
What was the height of population? Shupi and I were talking in Emporium. What was the highest?
I remember one time, probably close to 4,000, 5,000.
Yeah. And 90% of that was all Sylvania employees.
Yeah. Then we had there was a Savannah, there was a tannery, and the tannery shut down.
Up where the high school is, right?
Yeah, that was a tannery there. There was a couple sawmills around, a couple machine shops. But Savannah was the biggest.
Yeah. Wow.
Sylvania had so many girls working for him that this town was called Girls Town.
Yeah, wasn't it on the cover of Time or Newsweek?
Saturday Evening Post.
Look, that's what it was. Look, yeah.
Right.
Well,
It was very famous at that time. That's when they were making radio tubes.
Yeah.
And then during the war, they made the radio tubes, and then they also went into fuse tube, which was a secret for years. The fuse tube was used in military equipment. It used to be you'd have to have a shell that would hit something and explode. With the fuse tube, it got within about 50 feet of it and it would explode and do a lot more damage than it would otherwise. So they were very famous for that.
did you grow up here?
I was born up on West Creek Road.
West Creek Road.
And it's Creek, not Creek.
Oh, well, I'm trying to be proper because I have a jacket on.
Yeah, I was born here and raised in the area. I was up as a West Creek most of the time. I didn't come to town a lot.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things going on in town I didn't have much to do with. On through and I did a lot of church work.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of Masonic group, and then I did a lot of singing. I sang for over 105 weddings over the years. And
How many of them are still married, I wonder?
I started through to find out, and I got a little disappointed. So evidently my singing didn't keep them together.
Yeah.
No, most of them are still together.
Yeah.
It's great.
Twyla, are you from here originally?
By the mountains.
And you taught, well, we were trying to think, I never had you in school. Was it second grade or third grade that you taught?
Well, I have quite a history.
Okay.
I'm what they call a retread. My major was biology, and my grandfather was at home, and I tried to find a job within, I couldn't find one, so I starting run came calling, so I biology continued. I taught first and second and third grades, so now they didn't want to do. And then I had to work off credits. keep my job. And by the time I got done, I thought that I should be in business. So when I came, I taught on half-day sessions up in the old Columbia High School, Columbia People Private. Yes, board.
Okay.
And half-day sessions. And then they come down to Fourth Street.
We have a high. Sorry, guys.
Wow. Anybody have any questions for the panel? Any comments? Jim, anything?
Did any of you guys ever know Bernie Erskine? Just curious.
Yeah, I knew of him. I wasn't a friend or anything, but Bernie Erskine. Of course, he was well known in town, so everybody knew him.
I never knew anything about the history of Emporiums. Growing up, I never knew that Sylvania started there.
You didn't know that?
I knew it when we bought this house. I knew the Erskines, you know, were a well-known family. I had never had any idea of Sylvania. I never knew that adults had anything to do with Sylvania. Never knew any of that because they didn't teach you that in high school.
No, they never did.
So,
They just assumed everybody kind of knew it.
yeah. But once we bought this house, it kind of was like, that's really interesting. Just so.
Yeah. I'm surprised more artifacts.
They have a lot of Sylvania stuff, but I don't necessarily know that they do a good job tying it back to Cameron County.
Right, wasn't there something like 20 schools in
Sylvania
Cameron
building
County
itself.
one time?
Calling down.
And half of them had outhouses. Some had two and some only had
I
one.
brought it up about doing a
Yeah.
haunted factory on Halloween, like a big, and they won't let anybody near it. They just said nature,
Who owns it?
nature's running its course on it.
Who owns it?
Caldwell's.
Joe Caldwell, that's weird.
That the new part of the building is still usable, but the old built piece is just, they don't even let
They
it
should
go
put
around it.
I'd love to walk through that.
Yeah,
I know, the walls could talk, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I have a really old video of Sylvania from,
Is that the one that's on YouTube from like
it
1930
was
something?
Marty Erskine.
Yeah.
And it was just the way people dressed. And it was suits.
It's not.
Bruno, I remember Bill Berry lived in Prospect Park right next to us, and he was a guard there at Sylvania's. They had guards round the clock at Sylvania at one point going in and
Oh,
out.
yeah, they had to because of the government contract.
Because of the contracts they were doing.
And they also had a report anytime they heard a plane flying over.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
the guards did, they would help talk and write it down.
Sylvania was, so I remember Mom and I were in Emporium and we had blackout. First thing out.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. And we went into the Dolan, there was some, I kind of come up there and they said, what in the world would little old Emporium, you know,
Yeah.
how would they be so important? My mother said, I've got 3 sons over there, and that's what I think. But we did have blackout because of the thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I heard a lot of interesting, since we bought this house and we have the photo exhibit, I heard a lot of interesting stories about Emporium from, you know, the generation that would know.
A lot of history here.
A lot of history here.
And I think we need to tap into that more, do a better job of that.
What
Yeah.
happened later on, some people who that had service in Germany found papers that showed Sylvania, and showed the Sylvanian St. Mary's, and showed the paper mill. Evidently, somebody here in town had given them the addresses and what they did. And they actually found it, the records of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that they were mad.
So they were on somebody's list.
Yeah.
Were you, any of you around when they had the gunpowder works and
Yeah.
here?
Oh, yeah.
In fact, where Kenny and I worked, when they had the last big explosion, they blew the front doors out. They had garage doors open. We were working.
Wow.
It was strange. There was 3 people that were killed, and two of them worked in there with us. It was Wyckoff and Nisley, remember?
Yeah,
They
right.
both had brothers who worked there. They were in the shop with us at that time.
The guy stayed there.
But it busted half the windows in the lower part of town.
Really?
The guy stayed there.
And they found a wallet up in the St. Mark Cemetery and other things.
Yeah, they stayed there. Trying to keep it.
Really?
Yeah.
There was a shocking amount of people that died from explosions every year. Like 19 or 20 people every year, like
There were three guys that stayed.
explosions. They have lists in like a newspaper back then.
Yeah,
Were they
a lot
doing
of
some
people,
stuff? Go ahead, Ken, I'm
a
sorry.
lot of people didn't realize that the explosives that they used at the Panama Canal came
Yeah.
here from the.
Right, that,
And also the rock, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier came from Cinnamahoney. And there's another thing I used to think about Emporium. That was from Emporium.
What about-
There was actually three fireworks in Hammond County. The one on the road to Rich Valley,
Okay.
where the park is and all that.
okay.
And then there was one down, of course, where the other one blew up. And then there was one on the road to St. Mary's where they,
Hercules.
yeah, Hercules.
What about Pickwick? Where was that?
Then there was another one
Where
too.
was Pickwick?
Yeah, Pickwick.
That's up in front.
Pickwick
Yeah,
was in
that's-
Rich Valley.
I came up through Quahana yesterday in Wyckoff Run. The Waze app on my phone was going crazy because it didn't know where I was going. But it's shaved 25 minutes off it, and I hit rush hour on Wyckoff Run. I had 4 cars in front of me. And I could tell they never drove it before because they kept hitting your brakes. So it's like, if you know how to drive that, you don't need to hit your brakes.
There's a lot of accidents there in the winter time.
But were they doing stuff at Quahana too?
Yeah,
Some
it's
testing and all kinds of.
That affected.
What's that?
some airplane manufacturer, who was it?
Yeah, the Piper plant was
Yeah,
up
Piper
there.
plant.
The Piper plant was up there.
They had put a lot of money in them. And in fact,
Yeah. And a lot of those people lived here in Emporium and then went to work up there.
Okay, because there was I remember as a kid driving through those, like prefab homes and stuff. They had homes built there.
foreign contractors did most of the work up there. They were all 2 or 4 family homes, but they adjoined each other and the garages adjoined each other. And it was what was it? Where Motor Corals was originally, right behind,
Down on Pine Street.
no, yeah,
I'm not sure.
right by Sheets, as you go by Sheets on the left-hand side there.
Oh, it was down there. It was right behind the Echo. It was right next to the Echo, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was a contractor who did all the work then, built all the homes.
Kramer.
Erskine was involved in that a little bit. They all went bankrupt over that.
Did they?
They couldn't sell them. What happened, suddenly, when the war was over, they dropped all the contracts and they really want.
Yeah.
How old
Going back
were you
to,
guys when the war was over? Were you teenagers?
When the war was over?
When the war was
45,
over, yeah.
30, whatever, yeah, subtract 32.
45, 46?
Subtract 32 from 45, what's that?
Oh, I didn't know there was gonna be math. too.
I was a teenager because I can remember when the war was over.
Yeah, I'm the young one here, they're 5 years older than me, so.
You didn't have TVs or you had TVs, but you didn't have, was it the radio that you depended on mostly for the news about? How'd you find out that the war was over? We're sort of sheltered
It
here.
was in all the papers.
Everybody had a radio.
You didn't find out instantly.
When I was a kid, the only station we had was KDKA in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
There was no other station there.
Ah.
That we could pick up here.
Yeah.
I can remember, I was a Tom Mix fan, of course, you know.
From here?
Yeah.
Driftwood, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't have electricity, and I would come home from school real fast, put my ear in the radio, because it had on the battery, trying to make sure that the story was okay.
And talking about Tom Mix, I have to say, I'm his cousin.
Are you?
So we knew Tom Mix, I didn't know him personally,
Uh,
but he is my cousin.
I remember Amos and Andy.
Yeah.
And,
And going back to Sylvania,
Jack
we also,
Armstrong.
Sylvania did a lot, of course, overseas. And Bruno and I were over in France and Belgium and putting equipment in over there at that time. So we spent time over there several times, actually, we were over. And fortunately, I had a brother who had married a girl from France and they lived in France, so I could go down and visit them.
Oh, wow.
So that worked out real well. So.
Yeah, I was working in Belgium. He was working in Paris, around Paris. So we met one weekend, and his brother took us all over. We went up the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe,
Wow.
and we saw the Mona Lisa, the
Wow.
painting, all that, yeah.
And Bruno, I have to tell the story about Bruno and his wife. They were there and they said they were going out for a walk. So my wife and I, Mary Jane and I, were waiting for them to come back, and they didn't come back, and they didn't come back. Finally, we got in the car and started driving around to find them, and we saw them walking up the sidewalk. Here they had found a wedding party in a bar, so they went in.
I went in for a beer. It happened to be a wedding party. Boy, they took us all in because we were from America and we couldn't get out of there.
I like your style, Bruno. I like your style.
There's a movie about that, The Wedding Crashers.
The song, how are we gonna get them back on the farm once they do?
Yeah.
We had good times in Sylvania. And then in 1982, Bruno came out and told me I was no longer able to work at Sylvania. Cut back. So then I got a job with Sylvania out in Indiana, Seymour, Indiana, where we made headlamps. And I worked out there for the next 8 years.
What happened here that they had to start laying people off? I know technology changed and everything, but,
Solid state.
okay,
Everything, instead of being as big as this table, was as big as this coffee
Right.
cup, doing the same thing.
right, now
Yeah.
it's like this, yeah.
They made a few mistakes too. They had a battery program where they were making batteries, and they checked it out to find out whether it was going to be a good job to get into. And they said, finally they decided no, that nobody's going to be making batteries like this. Well, then they quit doing it, and then somebody else got started making them, and it would have been a major thing to have here.
It's partially the union's fault. At that time, batteries were only in black flashlights. All of a sudden, they have in every tool, everything had it. And every time they go to do something, they say, oh, it's not my job description. So finally, they just gave it up. Otherwise, we'd have been making batteries here in Tama County.
Yeah. Was there any truth to the rumor that Brockway Glass at one point was looking at coming here?
No, it was
Who was it?
St. Mary's, Rachel, what was the name?
I don't know.
I think it was Brockwood.
I can't remember. They have the plan on the road to Richmond.
Okay.
Yeah. He wanted to come down here and they voted him down. for some
That's what
reason.
Of course, the original,
Keystone, he was a,
Oh, that's what it was, Keystone, yeah, that's right.
the original work that was done here was in the lumber. And if you go back to the lumbering days, and it was still very active, still is active as far as that goes. So lumbering was a big business here.
Right.
And that's Sylvania plant now is where a large lumber manufacturing outfit was. And they did they would float wood, logs down the river and make rafts and that sort of thing. So they operation. In one time, it was not in my time, but just before that, most of the hills around here were bare.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, they didn't.
From all the timbering.
Before the rules came in about leaving some lumber there, they were practically bare. I've seen pictures of them where there are no trees on much of the mountains at all.
My grandfather could look at a stand of timber and estimate the board feet. And so he moved his family to West Virginia for a while. And the mountain behind where it had hemlock.
Okay.
And Mom said that when they come back, it was there because they wanted the bark because of the tanneries and so on. So, yeah.
Wow.
as far as industry, there was a pottery works, there was a machine shop, there was a brick works where they made bricks. And then the other one was where the clay come down from one end and the coal came down the other end. That was
Well, over here in South
right down there where the
South Park.
where they have all the history down there on
Oh, the museum?
yeah, museum,
Okay.
yeah, in that area there.
Down Driftwood?
Go ahead.
And it was actually an ironworks where South Park is. The big ironworks.
And they said that they would dump the slag out, and they said that the tramps and so on would go there for heat, to keep warm, and some of them didn't make it. They would be killed when the slag came out because it would be red hot.
Wow.
But, yeah.
And what time frame was that? 40s, 30s?
No, before that.
Before that?
Because it was a great big chimney. And I remember they were gonna knock it down. I was just a little picking head. But, so that's how far back they would be.
I remember talking about the chimney. It was a huge, high chimney, and my oldest brother climbed at the top of it. And they arrested him, and put him in jail for climbing up on that chimney. And just a few days after that, my wife was standing in the window of her house when they blew that, and she watched that chimney go down. And she said, that was amazing to see that thing come down.
Wow.
But they had to destroy it.
How vital was the railroad industry?
Very active.
I mean, yeah, because that's my grandfather.
And most of the Italian people,
Yeah,
went
they
to work on the railroad.
They all went to work on the railroad.
Right.
Big, yeah, there was 3 or 4 crews here. And of course, they had trains coming from Erie
Right,
and from Harrisburg and from Buffalo.
right.
That's why they call us Emporium, because they all met.
They all kind of met, and there was a big turning station down there, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. They had a roundhouse down there.
The roundhouse, that's what I remember, yeah.
They were popular enough that, as Twyla just mentioned to me, that the kids from down county used to come to school on the train.
Yeah,
Instead of coming on a bus.
Yeah, right.
yeah, mom used to come up to go to school.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Well, at Savannah, they had that tunnel into the tracks where the train came every morning from St. Mary's, Ridgeway, and Johnsburg, and they'd get off there. They didn't have to cross the tracks, they went underneath the tunnel. Right into Savannah.
Really?
And then they closed the tunnel down
And they
and,
did, it's not there anymore.
no, they closed it up.
No, they closed that.
so the tunnel is not there anymore.
No,
It's all plugged up.
Okay,
I was there when I was in school, so I remember walking through that tunnel.
Yeah.
Going home.
But it was starting to break down then.
Yeah, they filled it all with dirt.
because of liability.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
What years were you in school here?
I graduated in '83.
Okay.
I was like the last generation to see Emporium as a town before it was
Right.
dismantled by Walmart.
Yeah, we were just talking about the vitality of the downtown. I ran into a buddy of mine that I actually referee with, and he's not from here, he's from down where I am. And I said, what are you doing here? And he goes, I'm fishing over in Otter County, and they have a camp or something. And he goes, this is a pretty little town. I said, you should have seen it in its heyday.
So it was, after my generation, it was. This is.
So you were the ones that ruined it?
Yeah.
No.
No, I was told, like I said, when I hear that, I always say to my mom, you raised us. So that means you're the generation that ruined it.
Bruno, I'd like to,
What year they tore the tannery down and built a new high school up there? Remember when that?
Well, we built a new high school in '58.
I want to say 58,
Tannery was there.
because I think my dad started in 58 or 59 here, and there's a picture of him standing in the administration offices, and they weren't completed yet. So had to have been 58, somewhere
It was
around.
around that. I'm not sure just
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think the first graduating class, was 1960, but I'm not positive.
Yeah.
It was in that area. Yeah. Mhm.
Every town had a tannery. Wilcox did, Austin did, and Emporium did.
I told you I was a reed train, so I went for a while at Rockade, and we had 3 boys on the football team down there. And we my father was one.
Yeah.
And they called the other one the toe, with those walls.
Yeah.
Close, yeah.
Monty Close, Normswald, and my dad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all pretty close, no pun intended. They were all. Yeah. And Monty was a teacher down in Moshannon Valley.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think he taught him for a while.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause we used to go down and
His
visit them.
mother was my mentor.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were great people.
I remember when somebody came in complaining about the noise made of the factory down there across from the garage. And Bobby Baker was president. He said, it reminds me when I was young, he said, people complained about how the tannery smelled. He said, it sure smelled good on payday.
So how do you guys see Emporium in 20 years? Or how would you want to see Emporium versus how do you think you're going to see Emporium in 20 years?
I'll tell you, it doesn't look good.
I'm curious.
Retirement area.
The population gets lower and lower and the taxes keep going up because of less people paying taxes.
right.
And as the kids get out of school and go to college, they don't return to Emporium. There's nothing here for them.
Right.
It's only, we're all getting to be a bunch of old people here.
How do you want to see Emporium in 20 years? Is that how you want to see Emporium? Or is that how you think you're going to see Emporium?
Well, let me dive in and ask on top of that, what can be done to turn the tide? Or is it too late? I hate to be.
I think
I understand that.
I think maybe an interesting aspect of this, of what goes on here, we could ask Sarah. She's a retired Marine, and she came to Emporium. So why Emporium?
I think that's a good question.
We have a lot of retired military.
Yeah,
It's nice and quiet and it's safe. You don't have to lock your doors, you lock your cars.
All you have to do is to stay away from Emporium for a while, or drive through other communities
Right.
that haven't brought up, that don't keep the caliber of the buildings and what goes on. And I think, personally speaking, I shouldn't say this because I've never been away a whole lot, but there's something about this place. You don't realize what it is until you don't have it. And I think that's when people realize they do, they'll come back.
I think the three of us would agree with that. I mean, I've been all over the country, and there's still a part of me that would like to come back and, trying to convince my wife of that, however, it's gonna take an army, but,
What brought you to Emporium?
Well, a retired friend of mine, retired Sergeant Major Parisi, who just passed away unexpectedly not very long ago. He told me about this place. And he told me about the peace that he found when he was here, and the mountains and the wilderness and how the people are. So I came here to visit when I was trying to figure out where to actually end up. I was trying to figure out where to retire because I didn't want to go back to Minnesota. It's just too cold there. And I love the Four Seasons. When I visited here, it was around the Thanksgiving time frame. And I just fell in love with this place. And I have a 15-year-old son. I've lived kind of all over the place, and so has he. He's never been in the same school for more than 2 years. So discussing it with my ex-husband, we decided that he should be in one place for a solid 4 years for high school, because that's going to be a very defining moment in his life. So a little bit of consistency won't hurt him. And the small town atmosphere, he's never had that. He's never been able to just walk a block in any direction and go outside and shoot other kids with airsoft pellets, and that's what they do now. That's their way of playing outside. I'm all about it. But he gets that small town experience here, and he even gets more attention from the teachers, and that's important to me. If people can complain all about the education system here as they want, but I see a lot more one-on-one, and I see a lot more investment from the teachers to the students because they know them.
Thank you.
And you're a pioneer for that. And that's just going through the town. You see the mountains and you see the old buildings. And I'm an artist, so I don't necessarily, it's much like my Marines. I don't see a young person as they are. I see them for what they could be. I'm the same way when it comes to places and spaces and homes. I see a place for what it could be. It's already a vivid picture in my mind what this place is going to be. I know it's going to be because these buildings, they need to be restored, and people are going to get excited. People are going to jump on the bandwagon, and it's going to be contagious.
Yep, see you later.
And a younger generation is going to come back here because the big city life is not so popular anymore to the millennials because they can do a lot of business online. They don't necessarily have to live in the big city. So places like these where they're starting their families and they can actually walk on the street and be safe and enjoy all this beautiful nature, it's a win for everyone. Yeah, that's my spiel.
Well said.
Thank
I
you.
want to tell you that,
With during hunting season, you couldn't find a place to park uptown. You couldn't cross, you had to wait 10 minutes to walk across the
And the
road.
lady wasn't allowed on the street.
Yeah, and everybody who had a spare room rented it, for a week or 2 weeks. And the camps are all active, but now the father or the grandfathers that hunted and had the camp, and it went to the father, now the children have it, and these camps are all being abandoned and paying taxes. They don't and they're out of business. That was a big business at one time.
Yeah, the store stayed open till 9, not just
We
on
also had 8
Friday.
or 10 bars here in the camp, in the Emporium there.
We
Yeah.
need to get that
And they were all
back.
real active.
You could go up on the mountain and look up Truman before the camp,
Yeah.
and you can see bumper to bumper.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Was there a lot more agriculture back then around here? People growing crops?
Oh, yeah. Everybody outside of town had their own gardens that they put in.
See, I've often wondered if that has explained a lot of the depopulation of the deer, is that they didn't have the crops to eat.
No, I think it's probably primarily just so many hunters came in here, you know.
I think it has a lot to do with the forestry too, and the game commission. They're very, very watch that and control that, because if you have a lot of deer, you don't have the need to feed them. So,
Okay.
in fact, the fund, they even tools.
You mentioned, Sarah, the education your son's getting. We were just talking yesterday about the quality of teachers that we had and how fortunate we were. We had some great teachers growing up. I mean, for the size that Emporium was, the quality of education that we received in elementary and high school, I would put that up against any big city school anywhere in America. It was really, really strong.
She hit the nail on the head when she said 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Even I grew up in a country school, all 8th grade, and there was that, because you don't teach the book, you teach the kid.
Well, and it's our responsibility as a community to rally behind those teachers too.
Yeah.
I don't see enough of that happening. We don't give our teachers enough tools. We don't give them enough. We don't give them enough props, really.
And we don't let them spank the kids.
You know, I'm all about paddles and stuff like that. But I think that it's everyone's responsibility to rally around education, because it's not where it could be. Obviously, it's never where.
Yeah, well, she was almost done. I want to interrupt here just for a second. This is wonderful. But to let you know, Carol Casino, her last name is now Banaricho. I'm sorry, Carol. She came from Florida.
She's a friend of mine.
And she said, thanks for setting this up. I love seeing some familiar faces and listening to the conversation and the banter. So somebody's watching us. We've got 3 people on here anyway.
That's good.
So.
You mentioned about the teachers. I can remember when I was younger, of course, that everybody knew all the teachers in school. Now you talk to somebody in the town and you mention somebody's name and who's that? You know, they don't know they're a teacher. I don't know what the difference is, but it's unfortunate that people don't know who the teachers are. Well, but Jim, you came back to Emporium too, right?
I came back to Emporium. My favorite teacher in school was Kathy Stracula. So when I ran into her at Campbell House, she was the best at in school.
Say her name louder.
Kathy Stracula. She was my algebra teacher, and she's the one that made me interested in math.
And I just talked to her the other day.
Yeah.
The most popular one was Amy Baker. Everybody talked.
I was lucky. I missed Amy, man. Although I had Flossie Smith. Remember her? Yeah, that was Amy and her were twins.
She said it. She said it.
Yeah, yeah.
She didn't say a word.
Well, for your teachers, how did your teachers and your parents, where did they usually see each other? Was it during community events? Was it during church?
It was all of that.
Just-
It was all of that.
There
And the
was
parents,
it was a tighter.
and the parents were always involved in the school. The sports programs here were top notch. So it was,
Sports is a big one.
it's a big one. You know, and when I was growing up, the teacher was always right. If we got in trouble, the teachers were always right. Nowadays, it's the parents saying, my kid's right and you're wrong, and that's part of the problem.
And the teachers, the priests, the other religions, they all had that problems. And you didn't dare do anything or say anything to them because your parents would defend them.
That's right, right.
And the ministers too.
Yeah.
Even now, the children can turn against the parents if they don't like it.
Yeah, add another layer to that, and then you really got a problem. So that's exactly right.
When you kids were growing up, How did your parents react with you? I mean, did they contact the teachers? Did the teachers contact them, or how did that work?
Just what he said, you get in trouble in school and you get in trouble when you come home.
Yeah.
Right.
Did your parents have to go in and have meetings with the teacher, or
My parents did not.
no?
Well,
They just sent us off to school and that was it. But they never questioned what the teachers did. The teachers punished it. We had that coming.
Dad, did you do your homework?
I did not do homework. I hated homework.
I would say that was my experience. My parents wouldn't get called into the school. All it would take would be a phone call. I'd come home, I'd get off the school bus and they'd be waiting for me.
I tell my kids that I get 3 lickings. One from the teacher, and my sister would go home and tell my mother. The mother would lick me and say, "Wait till Dad comes home."
There's a difference in what people used to strive to achieve and what the young people used to strive to achieve in schools and what they strive to achieve nowadays in schools. Back then, it was, I'm talking about even when I went to school, like in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a lot more about life lessons and, ethics were taught. There was just different life stuff there. And now everything is testable. As long as you get the grade. It's not, how did you get the grade? What were your study tactics? Did you achieve discipline? Did you learn how to collaborate with other students? It wasn't really, it was about that back then, but it's really not as much about that right now. It's just achieving the grade.
the bugaboo now is the testing.
Yes.
That was
It's all about the grade.
Once you put, I'm sorry to say this, but once you get the government or something, it's, you have to do it in the, if you're gonna give money to an education, then give it to the people that know how to use it right down here.
I'm so glad our business partner Sharon is not here right now. She's a public school teacher in Philadelphia.
I didn't get that. I didn't get what you said. I'm
So our business partner Sharon is a public school teacher in Philadelphia. She's gonna come here with a very opinionated.
Yeah.
She is very.
Well, I'm glad
I'm excited when she comes here.
I'm glad my wife's not here because she homeschooled our kids. So
Yeah.
we had a couple of issues with the school system down where we were.
She has a very anti-testing attitude. She's very vocal about it.
When I first heard about homeschool, I was against it, but I changed my mind because there's things in the schools now that
Yeah, my kids tested way above the average for the,
but the values and that has an awful lot to do with the homeschooling. And it has turned out all right.
Yeah.
And homeschool, but they're very regulated.
oh, absolutely. We lived it. So, I mean, both of our kids were homeschooled. So, yeah.
The only thing I thought
thing, we
about,
had respect for teachers and the police and anybody with any kind of authority. We had to have respect.
Yep.
We got it at home.
Yeah.
You know? Kids just don't seem to have respect for anybody, even their own parents.
the one thing I thought about homeschooling is, does that keep them out of like band and that sort of thing, or not?
No, they can still take part in the school activities, but what happens there a little bit, candidly, is if you're not in the school and people don't know you, you're less likely to get picked up on stuff, teams and whatnot. But my son does other things and my daughter did other things socially, in other clubs that she wasn't just sitting at home reading books all day.
I don't know, I don't have any idea how many are homeschooled now.
There were a surprising amount of people in Cherry County that are homeschooled.
Really?
But, I mean, I know.
The number, as Twyla said, it's growing and growing.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to continue to grow, but it's not for everybody. I mean, it's a commitment and it's very regulated. I mean, you got to meet.
Oh, you have to,
Yeah.
When I heard about the testing and so on,
Yeah.
the family doesn't do the testing. You have to go into a school or, so it's very well regulated.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
We have a question here from online. It says, you're viewed as a person who made a difference. In your opinion, what was your most important thing that you did for your community?
That's a great question.
I guess let's start with my dad. I'll put you on the spot first.
Ooh, most important thing I did for the community?
Yeah.
Let's see, maybe I'd have to go with the fact I was a tax collector for 10 years. So.
That was a complication for me. Do you remember, do you understand? I'm a collector, and in Sunday school, we were learning about Zacchaeus. Now, this didn't just, you know, it was not good.
I was involved in so many things, so I don't know if I could pick out the most important. One thing, it's not great for the community, but as I mentioned before, I did a lot of singing in a lot of groups. And I think that helps a lot in a community, as well as singing for weddings. As I mentioned, over 105 weddings I sang for. And but it's, as far as for the community, I don't know if I could pick out anything.
Kenny's humble.
He is,
He's
isn't
humble. He's, what are you, 106 now?
Right.
You're 86, right?
Right.
86 years old, and he still goes to give blood on the regular.
he? Yes,
And
that
that's
would be
something that
something.
most young people wouldn't do. I'm sorry, you're not young, Kenny.
You're young to me, Kenny.
Yeah, you're young at heart, and you still go to the gym at 5:30 every morning, or 5 o'clock, or whatever it is.
That
But
doesn't help the community.
Kenny does so much to help the community, and it's just a daily way of life.
It's just the smile on his face
And
and the
that's-
way he goes about his
And that's
business.
inspiring to other people, because other people want to be like that.
Thank you.
There you go.
How about you?
How about
Leader by
Twyla?
example.
What did you do for the community? You were a teacher, right?
I was sitting there trying I always felt that if you respect your kids, they will respect you. And I never treated a kid like I always treated a child like I wanted to be treated. And I tried to live in my actions like you should. We don't laugh at people, we laugh with people. And I try. So I guess I tried to teach them the right way to live, with the way I lived.
How many years were you a teacher?
35.
35? That's a lot of kids.
Yes, it is. But you know what?
Did you ever count them up?
I went by 300 times 30.
Ah.
And counting. But I ever hear, put your bread out in the water and it'll come back to you. Did you ever hear that? Well, if you do something for somebody, eventually
It'll come
somebody
back.
will do something for you. So when I meet my kids that I had, they just respect me, good to see you, and all that.
Mm.
So
Well, I know a friend of mine just a couple months ago had said that you were her most admired teacher. Now, she's 64 years old, and she's probably had a lot of teachers. In fact, she's a early childhood educator herself, and so she was real. She wanted to come back and tell you herself
I
how
have a
much.
story. It's not my story, but there were some teenagers and they were in trouble. And the school didn't know what they were ready to go into juvenile,
Detention.
detention or whatever. So they took this lady and I think there were 6 or 7 of them. And if she couldn't turn them around, they were going to go that way. So she took them. The first thing she did was give one of them her check to cash to go to the bank. Well, to make a long story short, they all turned out to be lawyers, doctors, and they succeeded. They came to her. They came to her and said, what was your system? She said, I just love you.
And that's what you did too.
Bruno, how many years were you mayor?
Between mayor and councilman, 50 years.
Wow.
What happened, all my family were Democrats. Everybody thought Roosevelt was God then. And I was the first Republican in the family. Anyway, when I came down here, I got involved. A friend of mine ran for county commissioner in Mitchell, and I got involved in Republican politics. Well, then, when I first moved down on Oak Street, there was the houses, and then there was a stream, and then there was a road. And everybody had their own bridge. And every time we got a lot of rain, we got flooded. So I started going to the council meetings about on the Oak Street project. I went to every council meeting, and finally Ham Mitchell said, "You've been coming here for a year. Why don't you run for council?" So I did. I ran for council, and I've been there.
What year was that?
It was over 50 years ago when they did the Oak Street project there.
That had been, because
Yeah.
Subtract 50 from 28.
oh, there we go, math again.
And then the other thing I got involved in was I became electrical inspector for 5 counties, and I was all over doing that. I met people. And I still troubleshoot. I do it for free, but anytime anybody has a problem electrically, they call me.
Didn't they just have like a Bruno Carnevale day down in Harrisburg, or weren't you?
Yeah, I was mayor of the year.
Okay, that's what it was.
Pennsylvania, yeah.
Good for you. Well deserved.
Yeah, very well deserved.
I have a story about him, and he's an electrical inspector, Tom, kind of guy he was. He had a good friend of his who needed his line inspected, and he had a trailer. So he went out, well, they had the pole where the electrical line was, and it went underground and into the trailer. Well, it was already covered up. And Bruno said, well, you shouldn't have covered that up. I needed to see what size it was. He said, oh, that's all right. You don't have to worry about it. Bruno uncovered part of it and found out it was using too small a wire to go in there. And he made him change that whole thing. Now, how many people would do that?
Yeah. I always I help people out, you know. The other inspectors, if they found something wrong, they put a sticker on it, you had to get another inspection. I never did. I either fixed it myself or I called them, I would help them fix it. So
And tell them the story about you when you went into the camp and was inspecting it. Was it the sheriff or the cop came up to you?
Oh, yeah. That Charlie Gurner in Cottersburg, he called me one day, it was about 9 o'clock at night. He said, I need an inspection right away. He said, it's got to be inspected by tomorrow. He said, gee. So I went over there. We went over and Charlie met me. At the bottom of the hill, we got up there, we went up probably half a mile up the hill. There was a house with a garage there, and it was locked, the door was locked, okay? So we tried to sell our window open, we crawled in through there, and pretty soon the guy came right up, he stuck a gun in there, and said, don't move or I'll shoot you. And Charlie said, wait a minute, he said, it's Charlie Gurner here, I'm here with the inspector. So I could tell a lot of stories about that. I got bitten by a dog at least 6 times.
Same dog? No.
That was fun anyway. I always enjoyed doing it.
What about the size of your families? And how did your folks get to Emporium? Were you all born in Emporium?
Of course,
I was. Yeah.
both my mother and my father were born in Italy.
Oh.
And how many were in your family?
Well, in my mother's family, there was 12 of them. They lived in Bridgeville, Kansas.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And in my family, there was 5 of us. And in my own personal family, I had 6. I had 4 daughters and 2 sons.
Hmm. So you made the population of Emporium grow considerably.
And how many in your family?
Common parents?
Your parents, your sisters and brothers?
Okay, 6.
6?
Okay, and I've had 7 in my family. I'm the last one for some reason. I don't know.
That's because you were the youngest. They
And
saved the best to last.
Right. Then I was the father of 3 wonderful girls.
Say that again.
And they all turned out real well.
How many brothers and sisters did your parents have?
Mine?
Mm-hmm.
My mother was one of 13, and my dad was one of 3.
3.
And one of those died, so it was just him and his brother.
Mm.
And his brother was killed on a highway. A truck ran into the wagon that he was driving. He had a horse and wagon, and he got hit by that and killed. So my dad was the last one of that. So.
And were they always in Emporium? Cameron County?
Yeah, the original Ostrom family came in 1860, I think it was, from New York State. And since then, I've chased them back. I do genealogy work, and I changed it back to the first Ostroms that came over to this country was in 1630.
Wow.
So that's quite a while back. No, but they were from Holland. There are a lot of Ostroms also came from Sweden, but they usually have an O instead. But we had big families, yeah.
And the Lyon family, were they always in Portland area?
My own family.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my father's homestead and my mother's homestead was only about a mile apart.
Oh,
And my mother was 4 and her siblings. And my father was
guess nobody will know.
there were 4. 4. Yeah.
Okay.
When did the first lion come to Cameron County? Any idea? No? When did you give up horses?
The saddest day of my life.
I can believe it. I made her cry because she had some old movies that she didn't have anything to watch them on, and I switched them over so she could watch them on her computer.
Yeah, I saw my father, and that was a wonderful thing he did, and you made a lot of people happy because of that. Little girl with the pony.
Oh yeah, right.
And, so anyway, he knows all my secrets because he saw the movie. But when I quit writing, trying to think, probably in the 90s. It was a sad day, but it came gradually. So.
Denny, did your sister and did you lead the 4-H club or something with the horses? I know Denny's family had horses.
We were talking about that last night.
I was in the 4-H horse club for 7 years, and Danny was one of them. With me. And I didn't know beans about how to teach them to ride and all that. But I saw to it that they met all different breeds of horses. Even, and our club kept going during the winter, which was unusual. We met during the winter. And we sent some people to state, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you used to bring some of the young kids from school.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my daughter Lori was up there riding.
At the end of the year, you see, I've seen kids cry, and I've cried at the end of the year. So I would bring the kids up the day in 2 different days. The day the school was out, they would come up and ride, plus their brothers and sisters. And it was a wonderful time because I could be me. I wasn't the teacher.
Mm.
And the next day, the rest of them would come. And I had just 2 horses, but I would lead them. It was a wonderful thing. And then it was hard because when beginning of the year, they wanted to come because I took them up on the farm. That was understood. And then they had lined the kids up in the library and to see who the teachers were. You should see the face.
I don't know if you realize where she lives. Maybe Sarah probably doesn't, but if you go up Whittemore Hill, you go up Broad Street and up over Whittemore Hill, come down on Moore Hill, she's about halfway between there. So she's really up in the mountains.
Yeah, but so it was a good experience, and I was sorry when I had to give it up, but it was.
They're a lot of work. Horses are a lot.
Yes, they are, but they give more than they give a lot too. And these mountains here, that's the only way to get back in there. And when the up here is all mixed up. You get on a horse and take a ride and it helps.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious, over the years, who are some of the people that you have known
Another
in
15
Emporium
minutes.
that have made the biggest impact on the community?
He missed the question. He
Who
was
are some
talking.
of, who are some of the people that you have known over the years who made the largest impact on this community?
Well, unfortunately, my brain doesn't work as fast as it should for remembering. I think one of the ones that made a lot of change was the one that started, GKN, what used to be.
Kenny Gerd.
Yeah, Kenny Gerd. I think he did a lot as far as this community is concerned. And otherwise, I can't think going back, who else might, Erskine's, of course.
Erskine's and the Felds.
Yeah.
Who are some of the teachers that you enjoyed working with most? Well, who are some of the teachers that you felt were
As I
excellent?
said, Mrs. Close, Mrs. Christy Close was my mentor.
Okay.
And she was very influential. You know, I could go to her when things were, when I didn't understand. In fact, there was a door up on the 4th Street School, and they locked it because it used to be the old Mr. Patterson. There was a commercial thing, and so he had this door we taught typing in one and probably bookkeeping in the other. And we were in those two doors, and we would be back and forth, so they locked it. But she was, as far as I'm concerned, and then Dr. O'Malley was good too. He was our principal, as I remember.
My favorite teacher was Miss Livingston, and she taught. I took Latin from her for 3 years, and still don't remember any of the Latin, but she was a fabulous teacher, and she was the one that talked to me about possibly going to college, but I couldn't afford it. But I tried. I went visit colleges anyway with a couple other classmates to check and see if I was going. But she was the one who really tried to talk me into that. And another teacher I liked real well was John Bixler. He was quite the guy. Little guy, boy, you didn't dare get out of line.
I was scared to death of him.
He'd grab your shoulder and, ooh. But he was a good teacher too. I like both of them.
I wasn't very good in algebra, and I was scared to death.
That was my favorite subject. Though.
Yeah. That thing, you're either good in math or you're good in the language. But that's true. I mean, you're either one or the other when you're born. Well, I was on the other side of the ship.
You know, Moore Hill had a record during World War II. Every male over 17 years of age went in service. Almost every male up there went in service. There was no other place in Emporium like that.
Well, we had a flag in our church on the hill. In fact, our church on the hill is an old schoolhouse. Do you know where Moore and got the name? Do you know where Moore, Brian? It's a people that originally went in and cut timber. So that's where Whittemore, Moore, and Brian there were 3 schools on each hill. And our church up there now is one of the schools. And we had a flag, a star flag, like you do now. We had 20-some people from that church, and they all came back. Some of them were wounded, but they all came back. So,
I remember one other little story while we're talking about the old days. I graduated in 50, got married in 52, and then I was working at Sylvania at the time, and the boss came and he said, we need a supervisor for some of this equipment. And it was a big step up for me. And I was real happy. I came over to the house and I said to Mary Jane, my wife, I said, I just got a promotion. And she said, you also just got a letter from the draft board.
oh,
So I took care of that. So I ended up over in Korea instead. And while I was over in Korea, I had just been there 9 months after I went in the Army. And this young lady here was born. So When I came home, she couldn't stand me. She didn't know who I was.
I was 9 months old at that time.
She always said she was glad that she looked like me.
Yeah, I'm sure Mom was too. I enjoyed this so much, and it could go on for another hour and a half, but I know that we're all, tired. But Hometown Mentors, when we started, was just a theory that something was going to work out. And these gentlemen from the beginning have really helped us to know, that it's more than a theory. It's proven that people who used to live here want to come back. They love the place as much as possible. They can't maybe come back and actually live, but they can come back to visit and to hear the stories and things about Emporium. So I want to thank you folks for coming here today. This afternoon we have a business meeting, so that we're going to be involved in that for some of the time. And then Jim's going to take us over to his house, and we're going to have a party. So I'm sure if you'd like to join us after 5:30, you're welcome to that too. We have a couple recognitions for you. And you want me to do this?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. In I think it was 2006, I had our 35th high school reunion, and a friend of mine, a classmate, took a picture of the hills. It was in the fall time, and Jackie Lewis Anderson was her last name. She created the logo for Hometown Mentors, and she also created also allowed us to use the rights to this picture. And we want to present you with these pictures that says you make a difference in Cameron County with your name on it and the year. And it's presented to Twyla Lyon Grimm with appreciation for your passion and dedication to our hometown.
And did you spell her name?
I spelled her name right now.
Thank you very much. And I'm in tears.
No, you didn't. We can't ever repay you for the mentorship that you've given us over the years, but we hope that this recognition shows a little bit of the beginning of how much you've meant to us and to Cameron County. This is for Mr. Ken Ostrom.
Oh, really?
An appreciation for what you've done too, for me too. And Bruno. This was on Facebook, or there was one like it on Facebook a little while ago and online, but now you have one you can frame.
Thank you.
Where are you going to put that, Bruno? You have all those other awards.
My daughter's mad at me. She wants me to throw some of my stuff away. I'm a pack rat anyway.
Tell her no, you can't. Tell her she can't throw that stuff away.
Believe you me, we'll make room.
I know where she lives, at least Lori's off.
Now, Mr. Labrosi,
Yes.
we have, he has been the president of Hometown Mentors for the last 6 years or
Has
so.
it been that long?
It has,
Wow.
since
Yeah,
2013 through 2017. And
Oh,
we
that's
made
awesome.
a book for you,
Oh, thank you.
your years in review, just some pictures, and I
Awesome.
thought maybe you'd like to get some autographs or
Yes,
whatever.
absolutely.
And you have this to add to your collection.
Thank
of
you very
years.
much.
Mr. Shute.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry. Mr. Shute, you were vice president for those years.
That's why I put my picture on there.
And I thought you'd like that
Want me to sign it for you?
too. Yeah. And you make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you guys.
Likewise.
Dave was just so helpful in getting recognition to our organization because of his fame.
Oh, yeah, my fame,
He
yeah.
walked into the school at the reunion tribute concert,
Yeah.
and everybody goes, Dave, Dave.
Yeah. What are you doing here? Turn around and go home.
And
Thank
where,
you.
where is yours?
I get my recognition in other ways.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
having
You're
us.
welcome. My pleasure. So at this point, we can
I'm going to the high
disperse.
grade. If anybody wants to walk over to the high grade and walk through it.
Oh,
I'd
okay.
love to see it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
And as far as the board is concerned, we'll reconvene in the back room here. They're having a shower here.
Back row.
Yeah. You
Where
go
is that?
on the side of the building, there's an opening, an entrance. It's back behind the kitchen.
They have to go out here and around.
Yeah, you have to go get to the side of the building and go in that way. But we'll have the door open so you can see where it is. I have everything organized for this afternoon. There was so much business that we have to go over and talk about.
And yeah, and then at 5:30, we're having wine and cheese at our house, so we have some interesting people coming.
Oh, really? Oh,
Twyla,
good.
you talk about the Close family. Here's a picture of my dad. And that's Monty Close right there somewhere. I can't see it now, but that's my dad. That's P.C. Miller. And I think Monty's right here. Is that Monty? My mom wrote on that picture, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like, yes,
Yeah.
it looks just like his mom.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah. That's great.
yeah,
I remember Lamont Close, yeah.
yeah.
He worked at the station, the radio station too, didn't
Well,
he?
that was his cousin.
That was cousin.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That was,
Was it Denny Close? I think so.
Might have been.
He ended up in Rochester.
they lived at Howard Siding, and he was in broadcasting then.
There's something very unique, Oriam, and a lot of older generations talk about the younger generations not having values and not having just basic things that you respected when you were, younger. And here in Emporium, it's just different than other towns, than other states. It's young people are very respectful here. So even though they express their values in a different way, because this younger generation is a good generation, they just have a lot to learn, and that generational gap needs to be bridged somehow. They're a very fair generation. They're very equal. They believe in equality, and that is a strength. And when you take something, you take all of the values that you've actually instilled in them, because that was you. That was you three. You did that. You take that and you bridge it with what they have. They could be so powerful and do so much good. So I want to thank you for everything that you did, because you led your community with love and leadership by example, and you cared, and you actually went the extra mile. And that's what makes this place different, and that's why I fell in love with this place. It's because of you.
I want to thank you for giving what we don't see through your eyes, because we don't see that. But I thank you for telling us what you see that we don't see.
I hope
I
more
thank you
people
for
start
that.
to.
I thank you for that.
Hope more people start to.
Love it, love it. Okay. Now you can have them sign your books if you like.
I
I
would
think that
love
would be
to.
a great thing to get their autograph.
You know,
We're ending the
what you were
stream
talking
now.
about there, Sarah, it reminded me about the kids, I had kids come by in front of the house over there walking down the track, and he saw me and he said, don't you know Tom Glossick? He was a teacher. And I said, yeah, sure. He said, do you ever see him? I said, well, I don't see him very much, but